I don't know how this is going to go. It's probably going to look back at it in a year or two and say it sucked, but...
I'd like to think of it more as like a video, audio series.
Experience?
Experience.
So it's a podcast.
Yeah. The Mental Reps Experience. Ooh, I kind of like that.
Like the Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh, fuck.
With 20 million less viewers.
And way less cool.
Yeah, way less sponsorships and advertisements, though. That's a positive. Okay. We're already getting off topic.
Probably less talk about like DMT, too.
Yeah. Less people on there bashing Kairos.
Ooh.
We are 52 seconds into our podcast career, and I already got a little zinger going. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about what brought both of us to chiropractic school, I guess, because we just graduated a few months back, and also just kind of being into sports, lifting, training, rehab, that whole thing. Kind of what brought us here today, what shaped our views, and we'll probably get off topic a little bit too. But
yeah, that's the idea, right? Is to get a little off topic.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Start us off, right?
I'm trying to think. I met Kev in middle school. My first impression actually didn't go too well.
Surprise. What a surprise.
Surprise. No, I remember him like punting one of my posters down the hallway. That was like the first time I saw him. And I thought he was a huge prick. And I don't know. He claims it was an accident. He actually claims not to remember it.
I don't remember.
But I remember it very clearly.
I've had questionable memory.
I remember you like smirking and giving me like a glance when it happened, so that's why I feel like you do remember it.
Yeah, I spit on it first.
Yeah, spit on it, stomped on it. I got an F on it because of you. No, but then I don't know. Funny. We've known each other a really long time, and I don't know. We played sports together all throughout high school. Mm-hmm. Both played football. We were both corners, believe it or not. I was bigger than Kev at one point.
Yeah,
one
point.
That was the peak of
my times.
My pride, my sports pride. No, but yeah, played football in high school. I was in sports my whole life, so that's kind of what led me just down to being in athletics and stuff like that. And I've been a pretty competitive person. Wrestled in college a little bit. That was when I think I really started kind of being open to the idea that I could make like a career out of sports or athletics in some fashion. Because I had an issue, like, what do I, like, I don't know, as you hit that age, right, in your college, you're like, oh, shit, like, I'm becoming a real person now. What do I want to do with my life? And I was like, well, I like sports. And I always had an affinity for, like, science and stuff. My grandpa was an engineer and stuff. I think he maybe, like, instilled some of that in me. But, so I was like, okay, well, how can I do sports and science in one thing? I was like, oh, how about the exercise science major? That's here at Illinois State, so...
A lot of deep thinking going into
that.
Yeah,
so I had to really put some pieces together for
exercise and science, and I'll put those two together and be exercise science. Okay.
But yeah, kind of got it set in my head that I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach. I loved working out, and I thought like helping people. I wish I had kind of had some of that guidance when I was a developing athlete. And, the field's come so far even since I was in high school, right, when that wasn't as much of a thing. Right, like we had our gym teacher telling us to do cleans, not even teach us how to clean, just showing us just one rep of it and then telling us to do it. Yeah,
rip it off the ground, stomp your feet, drop it. That was it.
So I wanted to be someone that could be that resource for other people. So did a strength conditioning internship at Illinois State with their program there. That was cool. I think that was like the perfect situation to like dip my toe in the water. It wasn't full time. I would just go there after classes and stuff like that, and help with the workouts. I was working with like basketball, swimming. They actually let me work with a good amount of the sports, which was really cool. Being like just a first time intern and stuff like that. And as I finished up at Illinois State, I applied for another internship out in California at San Jose State, and that was a full time position. And so that was actually really cool, getting to live in California for like 7 months. And I would say those were my formative years as a strength and conditioning coach. That was really where I went there, and I was pretty much a blank slate. I had a little bit under my belt from Illinois State, but that's where I really got to learn, what the strength and conditioning field is, and what the names are in the field, and what the philosophies are, and really just how to go about training athletes. Like, it's not just, getting big or getting, jacked. It's knowing what you're trying to do, right? And what their sport is, what their demands are outside of the sport, right? Student athletes, they have a lot more on their plate than the sport itself, whether it's classes, family issues, and so taking those kinds of things into account when you're programming for them, and what their background is and what their position is. A million things that you have to consider that I was able to learn about and get exposed to. And Dr. Taylor, or not Dr. Coach Gary Uribe and Taylor Johnson were kind of my mentors there, and I learned a lot from them. So that was a really rewarding experience, I think. And I was actually considering going into doing a GA position at the University of Hawaii, and
you ended up in Lombard,
yeah. Let's see, get paid to go to school in Hawaii or move back to Lombard, Illinois, and go to school there.
Don't talk shit about Lombard, though. Do not talk shit about Lombard.
It's the real OGs know, the 630.
All right, I'll pick it up. For me, just pick it up in high school. Like I said, Matt Ry punted his thing across the hallway. I forgot about that. I don't know if it happened. But was really into, I would say probably as a sophomore in high school, got really into the training aspect of things. Obviously, I had no clue what I was doing. Just thought I had to eat a lot, lift a lot, and that was, pretty much as I got into it. My brother kind of got me into the whole training and lifting scene, I guess. He was kind of into it as well. He's a football and baseball player. So I started reading, like online stuff, magazines, watching YouTube videos, stuff like that. But I saw a lot of, I basically saw myself as becoming a teacher and coach because I identified pretty much I would say junior, senior year, I identified with a lot of my football coaches. I was like, I could really see myself doing that. And I thought that would be a way to help those, upcoming generations, whether it was in football or, strength and conditioning, whatever it happened to be. So I went to college. I started off at Augustana, played corner there for a year, hated it. It was very small. It was a Division III school. Ended up transferring, and that's where Ryan and I became roommates at Illinois State. I walked on there to play football, and they put me at outside linebacker.
Let's talk about how you went from being a cornerback with me in high school, smaller than me at one point, to playing outside linebacker at a D1 school, weighing 230 pounds.
That's what I said. For me at the time, it was all about getting as strong as possible, eating as much as possible, and just growing. I was very, very skinny throughout high school, and I think just coming into high school at 105 pounds, 5'2", and leaving high school at 5'11", 180, I think that's a pretty big change in body size. Going into college, obviously there was a bigger focus on lifting and strength and conditioning and all that stuff. So I really love that aspect of it. Probably just as much as going out to practice every day.
It probably helped that you didn't hit puberty until you're 19.
Yeah, it was a very late bloomer. Very late bloomer. My voice still cracks to this day. Yeah, I think the late bloomer thing kind of screwed me a little bit. I think I would have been a little better off being a standard bloomer, but yeah, hit my growth spurt a little late there. So where does that put us? That puts us at ISU. Yeah, so did the Rudy style tryout where you just show up and it was snowing in February and they just run you through a bunch of DB drills and wide out drills and linebacker drills, and basically they're just okay, you're pretty athletic, come get the shit kicked out of you for a couple months and see if you can take it. So I ended up making the team. Basically, you're stuck at the bottom of the totem pole, which I expected, which that was fine. I had been in, I had played a year at Augustana, so I kind of knew the role of the new players on the team. Ended up playing there for close to 3 years. Had a labrum injury that was kind of nagging from high school, and after my second season, kind of exacerbated it a lot and went through the entire basically physical therapy process again. That was the second time I had done that. This time under the guidance.
You had that when you walked on at ISU, right?
Yeah, did
And
not tell the
didn't tell
coaches.
them about it. Didn't think to mention that.
Yeah, I was trying to just make the team, regardless of how I had to do that. So left that off the the injury history that they had given me. Um, so yeah, I just told them, I was like, yeah, my shoulder really hurts and blah 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 blah. Went and saw the ortho for the team, like the team surgeon, and before I could he did like 2 muscle tests and he was already pulling the cortisone shot out of his pocket. I was like, okay, that's kind of messed up, but so yeah. Towards the end of my time at ISU, was dealing with a torn labrum in my right shoulder that I had had for a couple years, and it felt like it was hanging on by a thread. It would really swell, my whole arm would swell up. It'd get kind of numbness and tingling going down my arm, and it was not a good situation. And I kind of had to look at myself and say, you know what, I'm probably not going to go to the pros here. I'm not going to make a living from playing football. So what am I doing this for? I want to have a shoulder that works. So kind of got out of playing football there, went and had surgery, came home, finished up school that next semester, and then went to student teaching. And because, like I said, I was going to be a PE teacher and coach. Finished my student teaching experience and was like, holy shit, I don't think I want to do this. Basically arguing with stupid, we'll just leave it at stupid kids. I won't call them fat. Too
But
late.
they were fat.
But too late. Stupid large kids who would just not put their uniform on, just not listen, but basically, not respect what you're trying to do to them, like help them, live a better life and stuff. And so that kind of turned me off to the whole PE thing. I still love sports. I still love training. At the time, I really got into Olympic weightlifting after my shoulder surgery. And so that kind of led me to see a chiropractor. I had a neck injury from Olympic weightlifting. Did a jerk, was really heavy, neck locked up, couldn't really rotate my neck at all. So I decided to see a chiro that my mom had gone to. He's a little bit more of a rack 'em and crack 'em type guy, and fixed my neck within probably 2 adjustments. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And the whole time I was there, it was was blown away that was actually healthcare. Now, I disagreed with the model that he kind of put into place.
Yeah, he was more of like a rack 'em and crack 'em guy,
Yeah,
right? Like just
he was trying to make money.
blast you with an adjustment and send you on.
Lots of cavitation, minimal rehab. That's it. X-rays for everybody. But I was blown away that at the time I didn't really understand the science behind chiropractic, but I was blown away that I could go in feeling so shitty and come out feeling so good. So I was really attracted to that. And that kind of led me to look into chiropractic schools, and I kind of realized that all the things I like doing, so training, weightlifting, running, doing all that stuff, and all the sciences that I was so interested in would kind of all meet in the middle. And chiropractic was a good way to kind of bring all those fields together. So went ahead and applied to chiropractic school. It was 5 minutes from my house, so that helped a ton.
Always helps.
Convinced Ry to come with me.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much when I was considering going to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, do I want to go, do I want to be a strength conditioning coach? I was getting a little glimpse of the politics that go into, collegiate strength and conditioning, and, I'm sure strength conditioning as a field.
Yeah.
And that was turning me off a little bit, just because I wanted to be a strength coach, and that's all I wanted to be. I didn't want to deal with, athletic administrations and
philosophy differences.
Yeah, and coaches. I saw how frustrated the strength and conditioning coaches that I worked with got with the sports team coaches basically telling them how to train the athletes, which it's we get it, you're the coach, but at the same time, this is this guy's specialty. He knows how to get this person prepared for what you're trying to do. And so when they were not able to even dictate their own programs like that, that was something I could see frustrated them, and I know would frustrate me. Yeah. So that was kind of something that was kind of weighing on me. I'm moving across the country every couple of years when the coach of the football team that at the school you're at gets fired and they bring in a new staff, right? That's the life of a strength conditioning coach. And not
to mention making dog shit.
Right, dog shit pay, right? The lead assistant, I think, at the program I was at, was probably making $40,000 a year, and he's working 60 to 80 hours a week. It's insane. We'd get there at 5 a.m. for morning workouts, and I'd be leaving, and probably wouldn't get home till 7 o'clock. It's crazy the hours that we would work, and
and you're expected to have tons of energy,
yeah,
all the time.
So that, I don't know, talking to Kev.
Lime green Romaleos, bald head, and a big beard.
Yeah, you gotta have a beard.
There's a lot to do. There's a lot
Drink
to...
copious amounts of caffeine on a daily basis.
Yeah.
I remember, I mean,
Separate
having
episode.
a phone, like being on the phone call with you out in California, and like we were talking about literally exactly this, and we were like, there's got to be something else like we can offer. Like we were both kind of starting to be a little unhappy with, you know, what we were kind of getting into, and we kind of just like pulled the plug, and we're like, fuck it, let's go do our own thing. Like we know that we want to do something like this. Let's figure it out. So I moved home. I was looking at physical therapy school really when I moved home. I didn't really have much of a exposure to chiropractic. I kind of thought physical therapy was the way, and nothing against physical therapy. I think it's a useful, profession and service. But really what appealed to me about chiropractic was the scope of practice that we have and the ability to dictate your own care, to have...
you have the autonomy to make a treatment plan,
exactly,
to diagnose, and to kind of direct the patient on the path that you want.
Right, so not just following a surgeon's orders.
Exactly.
Which if you have somebody refer you from a surgeon, that's fine. But like, PTs, that was more so kind of more of what they were seeing. Now I'm seeing PTs, having more autonomy, and there's, legislation being passed for them, and that's good for them. Like, I think PTs are very capable of doing all that. But, at the time, chiropractic had a little bit more in ways of autonomy as a clinician. And so that's I kind of ended up going with that. And I'm glad that I did. I think, I'm happy where I am now, regardless of how I got here. Yeah. And
so for me, I think you cut me off there at some point. I don't remember where I left off.
You were talking about applied to chiro school.
Yeah, applied to chiro school. We both took a gap year too, which I don't think we mentioned yet. Yeah. Basically, I was personal training at a small private gym in a suburb kind of near my house. And I treated that as if I kind of like tested the waters in terms of if I wanted to teach or go into the fitness industry. And just doing, the training at this gym, I was like, the people enjoy being there. They're all like, it seemed like it was the best hour of their day kind of thing. And that was pretty rewarding to me. Like I really liked it, even though the pay was so bad. And even though, there were other administrative issues at the gym. But I love that concept. And that furthered my decision to go to chiro school because I saw, when you're a chiro, obviously people are coming to see you that need help with pain or performance or things like that. But generally, they're paying to be there and they want to be there. And so I knew that chiropractic would be a perfect blend of all the things I really liked. And that kind of solidified my decision. And that's kind of when Ry was kind of doing the same thing. He was he was at a PT clinic downtown.
Yeah, React Physical Therapy. David Reevy. He was another big mentor of mine. He was good, man. That was actually a really good experience because I was able to work with... I mean, he's a pretty prominent practice, and we got a lot of pro athletes, Chicago Bears, Chicago Bulls guys in there, and so getting exposure to that population, and it's different than student athletes because these guys are grown men, right? And they get paid a lot of money to do what they're doing, but they also have lives outside of those sports, right? It's like it's not the machine that the NCAA athletics is, that where basically your job is to play football and pass your classes.
Shut your mouth, play football, pass your class.
Yeah, exactly. And what the coach says goes, right? Like no, these guys are grown men that have their own responsibilities, and it's a job, it's a profession. It's not just a means for them to go to college, or they're not at the mercy of as many outside influences. And so getting exposed to them and just working with them, and once you realize that like these guys are normal guys too, right? Like you can't be starstruck. You can't be like, oh my God, that's so and so on the Bulls. Right? No, it's like, no, just you're there, you're helping them out, you're giving them, I was an aide there, helping them, taking them through their rehab and stuff like that, but just talking to them, normal conversations, like, where they're going to eat or something like that, like just little stuff like that. And, how it was exposure to a new type of population I was working with. And, even the normal people that were there, like, it's like, it really sharpened my interpersonal skills because you're spending all of a sudden just an hour with this person, taking them through rehab, and like, if you're just sitting there silent because you don't know what to talk about, like you got to be able to just talk to people and relate to them. And totally. I saw there were aides there that didn't have the same personal or communication skill development, and like people like would request like not to be with those. I mean, like it's you don't want to be with someone that's kind of giving you the heebie-jeebies or just making you feel weird. So that was a good experience, and I learned a lot about more clinical rehab and physical medicine, things like that in that setting. Whereas when I went into that with more of a strength coach mindset, so to be able to kind of blend those and come out of there with a very well-rounded exposure to strength conditioning, but also clinical health and rehab. I think that really putting those together really helped shape who I have become as a clinician.
Yeah, I think for me too, that was a good point you made. With the interpersonal skills, I was always in going through the teaching curriculum at ISU. We were forced to you're forced to get out of your shell a little bit because you are talking to large classes of people, giving like explicit directions and all that. So I felt comfortable talking in front of people as long as it was within my wheelhouse, which PE and training always kind of was. But dealing with adults more so, like Ry said, that are dealing with things day to day, they have family things going on, they're going on vacation, and all that different stuff that goes into who they are that day. Learning those interpersonal skills helped me a ton just in getting through school and getting through all the clinical aspects of chiro school, and I think it's going to help me going forward when we start seeing more patients too. But that was something that teaching definitely helped with, I think, because I think if you're a personal trainer, if you're a chiro, whatever your profession is, in some way, somehow you're going to be a teacher. You're going to be teaching, whether it's movement or health, lifestyle, nutrition, whatever your thing is, you're going to be teaching. And the skill of teaching is what I learned in college. So I am grateful for that opportunity. I wish I would have gone into something that was a little more, it was applicable to chiro school, but I wish I went into something that was more applicable. But the skill of teaching, I think, is definitely a valuable one to have, and that's helped me a ton in training and school and as a clinician too. So just a quick note on that.
So what kind of training, how's your training kind of progressed through all this process as well?
So yeah, like we talked about, I started out, a beanpole of a kid. Very skinny. So, in the beginning, it was all about how much protein can I potentially fit in my mouth in a day? How much sleep can I get? I was really big on, trying to take naps and sleep as much as possible. But just trying to grow as much as I could.
I still miss those meal plans at the cafeteria though.
Well,
that was cramming calories.
That's the dreamer bulk that you hear people talk about.
That was like 3 glasses of milk with every meal and just
probably
going for rounds.
Probably the Go Mad gallon of milk a day diet.
I think I put on what was that, our sophomore year? I put on 20 pounds when we were super into it. We'd just go to the gym and just eat. That was what we did, go to class.
There's nothing else to do other than overtrain, eat a ton, and, sleep in. That changed a little bit when I started playing football because my schedule got a little crazier, but the lifting was kind of included in that. But yeah, I mean, college,
you got better lifting though with football than at the rec.
Yeah, college was definitely it's a bulk session for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say over the years, it was all about getting as big as I possibly could for football. After I had my shoulder surgery, it kind of gave me time to kind of reflect on, okay, what do I want to do here? Do I want to keep trying to get huge and beat myself up, or what do I want to get into? So I got into Olympic weightlifting partly because of you. You kind of brought that home, I think. I was really good in the clean.
I started getting into that a little bit at ISU because I remember working out. I was going to a CrossFit gym there. Mm-hmm. Actually, I kind of did an internship, but they had 2 sides of the gym, and one was CrossFit, and the other side was more performance training stuff. And so I developed a little relationship with the Olympic lifting coach there, and he was actually my first exposure to true Olympic lifting, not the cleans we were doing in high school, right? And learning technique and stuff. And that's why I really got into it. And I did kind of start exposing you to that. Mm-hmm. And but that was always from that point on a big staple for me too.
Yeah, I remember specifically I could always clean a ton, and power clean specifically I couldn't catch in a full front racked front squat position, but the snatch and overhead squat was just fucking terrible and brutal.
Non-existent.
And especially coming off
intuitive exercises.
No, not at all. And I think coming off a shoulder surgery too, that didn't help it. I think a lot of people were like, why are you putting that weight over your head after you had surgery like that? But I'll be honest with you, since I've been doing snatch, overhead squat, and all those things, shoulders have felt better than they ever have. And I think it goes back to exposing yourself to ranges of motion that the shoulder's capable of. When you spend a ton of time overhead pressing, tackling, hitting people, bench pressing, and all that stuff, you don't spend a ton of time snatching, overhead squatting, things like that. You develop patterns of wear and tear kind of on your joints and stuff, and it can lead to things down the line. So I think at that time I was really big in Olympic weightlifting, stayed pretty interested in that for a few years, pretty much all throughout Cairo school. Did one competition in 2018.
Yeah, that
was fun. We'll talk about that in some other time. Did a competition, but I think now it's 2020. I'm a little bit more into the concurrent or like hybrid style training. And basically that's just defined as like 2 or more goals, like training goals within the same program. And obviously you go in phases where you're focused more on endurance or focus more on strength, but basically designing a program that allows you to potentially peak 2 qualities at once, or at least not, lose everything of one quality while you're training for the other.
I feel like CrossFitters are out there like clenching their fists right now. Like,
oh, CrossFitters are probably pissed. I always say the hybrid.
You're kind of like an undercover CrossFitter, I feel like.
I'll accept that. I thought CrossFit was sick, honestly. When you watch Rich Froning, Matt Frazier, Ben Smith, and all those guys, CrossFit is cool. Like, they're incredible athletes. I just didn't.
I will say that, like, I'm not a big CrossFit guy, but like, the fact that Rich, like, just that it's impressive what those guys do. Like Matt Frazier and Rich Froning, like, those guys are studs. Like,
absolutely.
Make fun of CrossFit all you want, but those guys are beasts.
I came very close to getting a Rich Froning tattoo on my ribs.
I wish you would have followed through with that.
I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Wish you would have followed through.
I still think he's a good guy, but yeah, I was very close. I was looking it up. I was just trying to see what I wanted there, but yeah, I think for me it was like after playing football for so long, I was like, I'm fast, I'm strong, but like if you tell me to jog a mile, I might die. Like, this is terrible, and it couldn't be healthy, So I think I can't say I got into CrossFit because I never went to a CrossFit gym or anything, but I would do CrossFit like WODs and stuff, and I like the ability to be able to be strong and have endurance and have a decent aesthetic to your body. Like, I like that concept, and I think the hybrid concurrent training kind of allows you to do that with a little bit more intelligence in terms of the program.
It's more structured. I'll give you that. Like, it's not just, all right, we're doing 20 burpees, 10 deadlifts, and 20 wall balls.
All right, let's rip on CrossFit a little bit. Okay, one of the biggest things I hate about CrossFit. I like CrossFit. Let's start with that. But one of the things I hate most about it is, the programming's full of shit, because on days like 9/11, they do 9/11 workouts, and they do 9 clean and jerks and 11 burpee box jump overs. That's not programming. That's what the date is. It doesn't make any sense. And you can make an argument for most strength training saying, what's the difference between 3 reps and 5 reps and 8 reps or whatever? They all get you strong in some way. But the randomness of the CrossFit programming,
just knowing like rep ranges is intensity though. Like, they're just throwing a workup out on the board and having everybody do it, which, again, I'm all for fitness, getting people in shape. If it's getting people to the gym, sweet. All right? But
it's put barbells in more hands of people than probably any other workout program. It's gotten people caring about their clean and jerk and snatch. Is great in that aspect. The programming just needs work, and you see it at the top level. The top CrossFit athletes are doing, their off season looks like they're bulking slightly while doing some, endurance
those
stuff.
guys have structured programs. They're
Shit
not
like
just
that.
coming in and doing the WOD of the day for
Exactly.
like those guys are athletes. They're not, they're athletes who are doing CrossFit, not
fit athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that kind of didn't make any sense, but
a little bit of semantics.
I feel like you know what we're trying to say.
They're developing the energy systems and the qualities they need
that are specific to what they're going to need for competition.
Yeah, which is crazy because you don't even know what it's going to be. But generally, okay, we have our long distance, our long duration Murph type exercises, and we have the 1 rep max clean and jerk, and everything in between you're pretty much responsible for, which again is cool. But I just think the hybrid concurrent style training that I'm doing now is, like I said, more intelligently like programmed, and it keeps it interesting enough for me to where, towards the end of the week is where I do more of my endurance stuff, and it's like it's a different mindset to get into, and it keeps it fresh for me. So I'm not just front squatting 5x5 heavy, followed by clean and jerk, followed by snatch 6 days a week. That'll beat you up pretty quickly.
For sure.
That's kind of where I'm at. Go back to you.
All right. Tangent ended.
Yeah, we made fun of CrossFit.
No, but I mean, yeah, and I think, my relationship with like lifting and fitness and stuff now is, I don't know, I've noticed like I've just gone through like phases, not in terms of like I like things and then I hate them. It's just like kind of what interests me. Like I was really into Olympic lifting for a long time, right? Like I would program everything around my Olympic lifting. Like that was my main goal, and I just wanted to be able to clean as much as possible and snatch as much as possible, right? And honestly, probably to a fault though, because like, I mean, you can do that stuff too much, right? And I did, right? Like I blew out a disc in my back, which that's another story. But I think that kind of opened my eyes though, and was like a new change, right? Like it entered a new phase. Once I got injured from that, I was like, okay, like I gotta. And while I was doing that stuff, while I was doing the heavy Olympic lifting, like I always did bodybuilding in college and stuff like that, and at the rec or whatever. And then like for a while, I just hated it. Like it was so boring to me. Like just thinking about doing like sets of 15 of like bicep curls like made me sick. Like I just thought it was so stupid. And then like now I've kind of come back around on it more.
Same.
I don't know, like maybe I just had to get burned out of Olympic lifting a little bit, but I still like the Olympic lift, but I've just rounded my program. I've taken like, I think over time I've just pulled like, all right, I can still do Olympic lifting, I can still like Olympic lifting, but I shouldn't be doing snatches and cleans 5 days a week. Like switching up the modality has allowed me to stay healthier, but it makes me enjoy what I'm doing more. I haven't felt burnt out in any of that time, and maybe, I don't know, maybe one day I'll get to that point with like cardio stuff too, like Kev has, but I don't know, I still don't love cardio. I'll go for a run once in a while, or do like some, some light physical, like endurance stuff, but I don't know, I just don't like it. Like that's how I felt about bodybuilding back then is kind of how I feel about that now. Like it's just boring to me.
And I'll be honest, I felt the exact same way when I was probably too heavy to do it safely, and my aerobic base just wasn't built up enough, and so I'd bust out of the gates for the first 800 meters and probably go way too fast and get real lactic and just basically kept my speed too fast, and it turned it into not an anaerobic activity basically, and I just grinded it out for whatever, half hour, 40 minutes, and it was terrible. But now I think that I've developed it a little more, and it's taken probably, I don't know, a year and a half to like develop a good enough aerobic base where, depending on the weather here in Chicago, like, I'll have to cut down my running volume when it gets real cold and snowy. But developing that aerobic base to where I can go out and, run and feel comfortable at a certain pace. It's not super fast yet, but, that's made it way more enjoyable for me, and it's made it to where I kind of look forward to the warmer months and the summer months, because I know I can kind of, I won't be lifting as hard as many days a week, and I'll be doing more biking, running, stuff like that. So that's made it enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I think part of like me too, like this is just totally an irrational thought probably, but like I'm like young and fit now, and I'm like I want to like lift heavy while I can.
Yeah.
And now like, because I feel like doing all that cardio stuff is a little bit, I know you'll
stand
on your mountaintop and you can lift heavy and do cardio, but I feel like it's just a little counterproductive when you're trying to get strong and big doing a lot of cardio. And so it's like I'm still trying to like, push myself in that regard, and so like doing cardio, like I'm like I can do that when I'm like 40, right? Like once my knees are just dead from jumping and running and doing all this stuff for my entire life, then I can, I don't know, do some lower intensity cardio stuff.
Yeah. I will say this, last year, like into October, November, I ran a half marathon on my own. I signed up for one, but it conflicted with a dry needling seminar that I was taking. So did it on my own. And coming back from that, I was really excited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to just eat a shit ton, go back to the Dreamer Bulk days, and do some bodybuilding stuff, which I kind of ended up missing. So I was like, man, I'm just Olympic lifting and running now. It's kind of, I miss the bodybuilding stuff. And it was hard for me to, when I came back, I enjoyed the bodybuilding more than I ever had. And the Olympic lifting and pure strength training, it took a long time to get the numbers back up there. And that's something that I'm going to try to refine the next cycle I go through here. COVID is not helping that a ton.
No,
but like maintaining that strength while you're in an aerobic phase is something that I'm going to still work on a lot. And I think it's valuable not only for me, but it's valuable for a lot of like general pop clients, because at the end of the day, most of the people want to look good, in clothes or out of clothes or whatever at the beach, at the pool. And I think some form of cardio and some form of lifting is going to be best for most people. Just finding the dosage and the type and the modality is kind of, what you have to do for most people. So like that style of lifting and exercising is, I think, very beneficial. It's just a matter of figuring out how far you go into each quality. How far you go into endurance, how far you go into strength, how much you lose of the other, while you're focusing on one.
I feel like it takes so long to like figure that out, right? Like, it's something almost you actually have to like, as you figure it out, you're like, oh, okay, now I know this.
Exactly.
Right? Like every program I've ever done, it's hard to say like I've ever like wasted my time with any training I've done, because like you just like learn things about like that style of training then, and you're like, oh, okay, so I hate this. Or this sucks coming back from this after this. You know what I mean? Totally. So it's like, even though I felt like even when I did that, when I fucked up my back and we were doing a super intense 5-day heavy
catalyst program,
and I mean, I felt like we had prepared pretty well for that. We were already lifting 3 to 4 days a week pretty heavy before that, and other supplementary stuff. And so it's like, but now like I'm like, at the time I was like, fuck, why did I do this program that like I could feel myself getting more and more beat up, and I just dug myself deeper in the hole because I felt like I had to stick with it and get through it.
Yeah. And
at first I was like, why did I continue to do that? But I look back and I'm like, okay, yeah, maybe it was dumb that I didn't listen to my body, but I'm still glad that I did it, because it's like now I have that awareness, and I know like, okay, like this is how I'm going to respond to this, or this is what some people can handle, this is what some people like it was a learning experience, right? Like your failures are some of your best learning experiences. I think anytime I fucked up with a program or done something stupid or got bored of it, like I at least learned something from it.
Absolutely. I think that seeing you go through the back injury, as well as like even injuries I've just accumulated over time, I've been lucky, knock on wood, had the shoulder surgery. I've had injuries here and there. I almost chopped my finger off. That was not exercise related. But they've always been injuries that I could rehab myself pretty well, and I like knew the things I had to do. But all those injuries and the injuries I've kind of had have opened my eyes to the acute chronic workload ratio argument that you hear a lot of PTs and chiros talk about. And to be honest with you, a lot of what we will see in clinic is people coming in that have done too much too soon, or they're doing something too often, and they're not prepared for that load. Craig Liebenson talks a lot about the load you're not prepared for and all that. And
I think that's probably how most people get hurt, is like they started either a new program or try to play soccer in their yard when they haven't played in years. Like it's always like they throw a new load on themselves that
they're not prepared for.
They weren't prepared for. And,
absolutely. And
that's how that injury happens.
And I think when you boil it doesn't even have to be starting a new program. It can be, you can boil that down to like, I went to go down and pick up my cat and I haven't hip hinged or flexed my spine in how long, under any sort of load, or done any sort of like, basically the tissues that you strain are not ready for that loading, and boom, there goes your disc. And then you go to a stupid chiro or PT that says, oh, it's because you flexed and flexion's bad. It's like, well, you just weren't ready to do that activity. But had you deadlifted, had you squatted, had you picked things up off the ground, you would have been ready for that, and you would have been injury free.
Well, I think too, it's important that like
pisses me off
as clinicians, like we've gone through some of these injuries too, right? Like I can't imagine like having a clinician who's like never like had like a serious injury like that, and like they're trying to tell you how to rehab it. Like I learned so much from rehabbing my back. That gave me so much confidence
do it
as a clinician when I could do it for myself. I'm like, okay, here's the struggles of rehabbing a herniated disc, and here's what worked really well. And
and it won't be the same for everybody.
No, but it's like at least having that experience and like again that confidence and like okay, like I applied what I think is right and it worked. Like it's not like oh we'll see what happens. Like let's do some some of these exercises and we'll see if you get better. Like no, it's like you apply the concepts and they work a majority of the time. And so being able to experience injuries ourselves has given us perspective as clinicians, but also as patients. Even
and I think a lot of times too, you learn. It's usually not one thing. Now, in my case, when I first went to the chiro and got my neck adjusted, it kind of was that one thing that I was like, wow, that really helped a lot. But in, I think, every injury since then, it's always been a combination of, okay, maybe I got a little bit of soft tissue or I got adjusted, and okay, that helped for, a little bit, and that got me through. But it was the multitude of different rehab things, and it was the reduction in volume and the changing of range of motion and all those variables that we can change as clinicians or trainers that kind of were more responsible than the hands-on modality.
I mean, it's more times than not, it is more than one. Like even with my back, like while taking that time off and rehabbing, I was able to realize that my ankle dorsiflexion was dog shit, and realizing like, okay, well then I'm not getting into as much hip flexion, and now I'm flexing at the spine because I can't get into hip flexion because my ankles won't drive my knees forward. And so it's like this whole kinetic chain, and I was able to realize that because of the injury and now correct that. And since then, like, I'm aware of that. But you're right, like it's assessing other parts and being able to correct those and seeing how that affects up the chain or down the chain, whatever.
Totally. And at least at very minimum, when you're seeing a patient then, and let's say, all right, let's go the McKenzie route and it's not working, it at least gives you a plan B that you can say, okay, let's change the loading parameter, let's change range of motion, volume, tempo, intensity, whatever, and give it some time to work. And once it starts working, that patient is super bought into what you're doing, but you have to, frame that to them and say, hey, this might take 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, but this is going to lead to a longer term result rather than the quick fix that you're probably coming in for. So It's a hard conversation to have, but going through it yourself helps you to have that conversation a lot easier, I think.
Yeah, man. All right, I think that's a good place to cut this off.
Yeah, we covered enough.
All right, so we're gonna be trying to put these out at least, hopefully every week, if not every other week, and we're gonna be trying to have some fun with it, bring some cool topics in. So
feel free to message us, email us, whatever. If you have topics, either like questions you want answered or topics you want us to talk about, we're more than happy to do that. We'll generally be kind of staying to kind of like our own schedule in terms of topics we talk about. Today was just kind of origin story and, shooting the shit.
Getting a little philosophy in.
Yeah. But if there's specific stuff that you guys want to hear, go ahead and shoot that to us.
And as always, please like and subscribe, and we'll hope you stay tuned.
Peace.